What's going on, guys? Ryan O'Toole back here again for episode 9 of the Endgame series. Thank you guys so much for watching the previous episode, episode 8, which was Thor the Dark World with Patrick Burrow. And now we're on to one of my top 3 favorite MCU films. I can't get enough about this film. That is Captain America the Winter Soldier, directed by the Russo brothers, the iconic Russo brothers, starring Chris Evans as Captain America, Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, Anthony Mackie as Falcon, and you had Robert Redford as the main antagonist, Alexander Pierce. And guys, I'm super excited to talk about Captain America the Winter Soldier, and my special guest today was previously Casey Cosley, but as you can see right here, Casey Cosley could not show up to this, unfortunately, because of schedule differences and bad timing. Casey, unfortunately, couldn't have made it on here, which was a bummer, but I have another awesome special guest right here. He has been on the channel before. We did a spoiler talk for Venom. Go check that out on my channel. He's a special person because he's my cousin. That is Patrick Preston. Patrick, what's going on, man? Thank you for joining last minute.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ryan. This was a huge pleasure. How's it going, everybody? I am Ryan's cousin. And happy International Women's Day to everybody, because we're recording this on International Women's Day. Yes. It's such a pleasure to talk about one of my personal favorite MCU movies. This movie, doesn't it just like give you that feeling that like it's a move when a movie is so good it makes you clench your fist, and just how
I know that feeling.
Adrenaline. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Cannot wait to talk about this movie. Cannot wait.
100%. Thank you so much, Patrick. Yes, it does make me clench my fists like Captain Marvel. Now, I'm not going to talk about that movie. But anyway, before we talk about Captain America the Winter Soldier, guys, Patrick and I, we want to hear from you guys in the comment section down below. What were your guys' thoughts on Winter Soldier? Do you absolutely love it? Do you think it's overrated? Do you think it's terrible? Let us know your thoughts and opinions and your answers to these questions, because we want to hear what you have to say. So, Patrick, starting with Winter Soldier, what was your first experience with this film? When did you see it in theaters, and what was your hype going into it?
That's actually the funny thing. I saw opening night with my friend and his cousin. We saw it pretty much immediately after school. And the funny thing is, we were all in Boy Scouts together. Mm-hmm. And we were the younger kids, and then we saw that we were in line because there was a huge line at the theater, and we were in line with the older boys in the Boy Scout troops, and I'd estimate them to be about 18, 17 years old. And mm-hmm. we just made eye contact with each other like, you guys like these movies too, don't you? We didn't really know what to expect with this movie. Like, we didn't have low expectations, but at the same time, we were very curious as to like where this universe will go, because it's been 2 years since the Avengers, and we only got Iron Man 3 and Thor 2, which provide context as to like what those characters have been doing since the Avengers. And so now we're like, what's Captain America been doing? So then we saw the movie, and we all left like together, like the whole theater just like walked out. Mm-hmm. And then we made it outside of the theater. We all made eye contact with each other, and we're like, hey, is it just me, or did this movie kick ass? Yeah, and it kicked ass. It absolutely kicked ass. The memory of this movie is like still palpable. I still remember like sitting in this theater, like, oh man, what's gonna happen? It's just such a cathartic experience.
That's an awesome experience, man, and that was my exact experience as well. So my experience with this film, seeing it opening night with my stepdad Kevin, and we went into this movie really anticipating it because I love the trailers for this movie. It was awesome. And it's a special year for me, 2014, because I graduated high school this year. And this was a very interesting film because I love Captain America the First Avenger. I think that's one of the more underrated MCU movies. And there's new directors attached, the Russo brothers. I've never even heard of these guys before. And all the trailers were so cool and interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And going into this movie, I was just so hyped. And walking out of this movie, I was blown away. This movie is incredible. At the time, I said, this is hands down the best Marvel film. Nothing is going to top this. And I lied because another film topped it. But still, Winter Soldier, man, it's tough. Like, this movie is in my top three, but it shuffles back and forth from three, two, three, and two, back and forth with Civil
Yeah,
War. Infinity War is my favorite.
but when I think back to my theater experience watching Winter Soldier, it's almost like Winter Soldier like established the theme of taking risks in the MCU, and I feel like Civil War and Infinity War have to thank Winter Soldier for setting those risks.
And also, this film is special to me because it got me to go back to the movie theaters constantly. Like, this film right here, I haven't been to I haven't seen a bunch of movies since then, since 2014. I got my love for movies back again because of this movie, and I just went to the movie theaters every single week since then, watching movies. Here's my second question to you: what was your impression of Captain America before this movie?
Well, I saw the first Avenger when I was about 10 years old. I saw it in theaters, and yeah, I liked what they did with Captain America. I appreciated that they took a character and who was previously seen as kind of cheesy and a little corny, and I appreciated that they took him. They sort of embraced the cheesiness. Like, they didn't make it like a full out comedy, but they also didn't make it like completely like full on Dark Knight serious. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that they took him in a more grounded approach. I feel like what they did here with Captain America in the Winter Soldier, I thought it just not only did it further his characterization, but also gave him more layers, because here we have this character from the 1940s and you put him in a modern day setting,
Mm-hmm.
and he's in the situation where he constantly needs to reevaluate his own morals.
Absolutely. I completely agree with everything you just said, man. Captain America, before this movie, he was very cheesy. I mean, if you watch the 1990 movie, that proved that. That was a laughably bad movie.
You remember that? Good
Yeah. God. That was a haunted nightmare from my childhood. But
yeah.
yeah, so First Avenger took him in a more grounded approach. And now he's in the real day now. And
Yeah.
I just love what the Russos did here with Captain America this time, because he made Captain America 10 times more badass. Like, the action just kicks right off the bat with the opening scene on the boat and Cap whooping all those guys' asses. Like, this is the Captain America we've all been dying to see.
99% of their action scenes are all stunt work, and I think this really sells the authenticity, because there's no CGI. Almost everything is like completely real, and yeah, I feel like they really sell like the feeling of weight. You really get this feeling that Captain America's shield is very heavy, and so when you get hit with it, like, it really looks like it hurts, and that's due to great cinematography, great sound design, great performances. Yeah, they really sell like these action sequences. It's so brutal.
Exactly. And that leads perfectly to the next question. What was the one piece of this film that made it work in general? Was it the Russos, the story, the cast? What was it that made this film work?
It's a tough one, but I do feel like it was the Russos, because not only was their direction of action sequences like crazy. I mean, yes, there is like quick cuts and like handheld camera, but it almost never detracts from the action sequences. But in addition to like their action sequences, I really appreciate how they're able to take risks with the story.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate how you don't always know how the movie's gonna end, when it's gonna end, because when I was sitting in the theater, like, I said, like, oh, okay, they'll defeat Hydra, Shield will reform, Bucky will be a good guy again. But no, it sort of takes it in a completely different direction. And I think that's what the movie really does, is that it constantly subverts your expectations. And that's all thanks to the Russos with their scripts.
What made this movie work was just how different it was for an MCU film. Because the first Avenger was a war film. This one's a spy espionage political thriller. And it's so cool. It's like those throwback 70s, No Mission Impossible, Jason Bourne movies. To me, this feels like a Jason Bourne movie. Like, the plot, the spy espionage aspects about this film were so awesome and interesting. And it's Captain America, like a guy who's 95 years old, who's a comic book superhero that you feel like wouldn't work in a spy setting, but it does.
Absolutely.
And that proves with the action in this film. which is what I want to talk about right now, actually. Patrick, what is your favorite action scene in Winter Soldier? Your favorite scene?
Hands down, the highway scene. That
You took my pick.
yeah. Oh man, I'm sorry. The reason I love it is there's almost absolutely no warning, and
Yeah.
in a different movie you'd think that'd be a bad thing, like you'd appreciate a segue, but no, because the characters are already on the run. So that when Winter Soldier comes out of nowhere and just rips the steering wheel, first of all, I've literally never seen a character in a movie rip out a steering wheel. That was crazy. Oh, that blew my mind. But yeah, they just throw you in there. They take the Hydra agent and toss him out of the car, and then you just see him get hit by a truck.
Yep.
Which was amazing. Blew my mind.
Yeah. So since Patrick took my pick, I'm gonna go with the elevator scene. The elevator scene, it's tied. Like those two are my favorite scenes. Like in the elevator scene is so awesome just because it's less than a minute and it's awesome. I just love the way it's all set up. Like it's so tension filled. There's not much of a score at all, and it culminates into Captain America with all these. With all the guys on the elevator, you see the strike team there as well. All these guys in one elevator, and then he's just like, "Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?" And it's so awesome. I freaking love it. He takes all these guys out in less than a minute. Absolutely. Like that. Yeah. The highway scene in that, and also I want to give an honorable mention to Nick Fury's car chase with those cops.
Oh crap!
That scene was awesome because we get to see a Nick Fury scene. When does Nick Fury ever get any development? He gets development in Captain Marvel, honestly. Yeah. Here he gets actual action scenes to do. Like, this police scene is awesome. I love the car chase, the practical effects in it, and the score as well. And might I add, Winter Soldier is my favorite MCU score by Henry Jackman. I don't have a least favorite scene, so...
A least favorite scene?
Do you have a least favorite scene?
Well, I do have one big gripe with the movie, but again, it didn't really subtract from my overall investment.
Okay.
And that was the scene in which Cap and Black Widow are in Captain America's military camp, and they meet Arnim Zola, who's in that like computer.
Yep.
And he explains that while Hydra was part of SHIELD, they were responsible for like every disaster that like happened, including the deaths of Howard and Maria Stark.
Mm-hmm.
And they do show footage of the Kennedy assassination. And I was sitting in the theater. When I was 13, I was kind of like, really, like every disaster that happened, that was all part of Hydra. And again, all Marvel films need to sell a sense of suspension of disbelief. But again, I was just kind of like, really?
Really, no scene for me is bad at all. Yeah, maybe some scenes. Maybe, did you really need to add in that Sharon Stone and Captain America kind of flirt thingy in there? But...
Yes. Thank you. First of all, I thought that the chemistry between Captain America and Black Widow was much better.
I agree.
Yeah, and I was actually a little frustrated that they didn't show it in Age of Ultron, because instead they put her with the Hulk. Which came out of like nowhere. And in Civil War they have Captain America and Sharon kiss, which also came out of nowhere. I just felt that the tease between Black Widow and Captain America was stronger, and I sort of like the dynamic of Russia and America coming together. That I would like that dynamic.
That's just one part of the film that was like, all right, did you really need to force that romance? But still, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
All right, now Patrick, who is the better villain, Bucky or Alexander Pierce?
I like how Bucky. First of all, it's not until he says, well, I love how he doesn't really speak a word of dialogue throughout the whole movie, and he's just constantly built up, like Black Widow's like, they call him the Winter Soldier. They just keep building him up. And if you read the comics, you know who the Winter Soldier is, but if you don't, like, you're in complete suspense. I remember my mom, as soon as the movie was out on Redbox, we went to get it because like I just liked it so much, and my mom had no clue who the Winter Soldier was gonna be. So when they take off his mask and it shows it's Bucky, she was like, "What?" that was her reaction. But again, not a discredit to Robert Redford as Alexander Pierce, because I thought he was great. I liked how his morals what was it? Even though he wanted to like kill people, he actually had the same set of values as Nick Fury. Because there's a
Mm-hmm.
monologue where he says, "Our enemies are your enemies, Nick. Famine, war. Yeah, but we're on the same side. We're more on the same side than you think." And I like that dynamic to his character. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna go with Winter Soldier.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, simply because of I like that layer of mystery.
Yeah, yeah. There's no right or wrong answer, really. I'll pick Alexander Pierce. I like Alexander Pierce. Like Robert Redford, you never think a man that age would be in a Marvel film, and
Oh no,
he,
oh no,
yeah, he's such an icon. Like Robert Redford's in The Godfather. Like, geez, and he's
he was.
amazing. His character was super compelling, and he's psychotic. He's crazy. He's the
Yeah,
leader of Hydra throughout this whole entire year, and he's so layered of a character, and I like his ideas and his ideologies about Shield and Hydra, and
yeah.
he's such a compelling, and he's controlling the Winter Soldier and all that. Like Robert, holy shit, Robert Redford just slapped Bucky Barnes.
Oh yeah,
Like, you know, he's in control and all
and
that. Yeah. And he tried to kill Nick Fury.
I liked how even though he was a surprise villain, they revealed it in the second act rather than the third act. Because I get the feeling that if you reveal a surprise villain in the third act, it makes the climax seem a bit forced. But I
Mm-hmm.
liked how there was a clear antagonist in the second act, so it didn't make the climax feel forced. It knew like what we're trying to fight for and who we're trying to fight.
Do you think this was the film to take the MCU to the next level, or was it another film?
Well, that depends on how you define the next level because you take a film like the event. Well, you take a film like Iron Man, which some people were well versed in Iron Man, others weren't. There was a bit of a risk. Can we pull it off? And eventually they pulled it off, and they show that they can make like an interesting character out of someone that the public doesn't really is not too familiar with. But then you get a movie like the Avengers, which they take already established characters and have them come together in this climactic battle. But then you take a movie like Winter Soldier, which takes the superhero genre and almost redefines it, so it hardly resembles your run of the mill superhero movie. It resembles, like you said, a political thriller. I would agree because it does take the superhero genre in. It shows that the superhero genre doesn't have to be locked down into the superhero genre, if you know what I mean. We can have superhero genres that are more like political thrillers. We can have movies like Logan that resemble westerns. We can have movies like Spider-Man: Homecoming, which resemble high school movies.
I think this film in particular made the MCU bigger than what it was before. Like,
Mm.
this film took a lot of stakes. It took no risks. It took no punches. Shield is gone because of this movie.
Oh yeah,
Bucky is the number one wanted man because of this movie. It took everything to a whole new level, and it changed the game direction wise because you brought in the Russo brothers, who are now directing Infinity War and Endgame because of this movie.
yes,
So the MCU is at a new high level of expectation.
yes,
Like, if you're looking at films to go to the next height, it was because of this movie. This movie changed the MCU into what we now view it as, an empire, as something that can't be topped in the comic book genre. Like, this film, I believe, put it over the DC by far as the
oh
best superhero franchise. Patrick, where does this film rank in your MCU rank? I'm just curious.
my top three are Infinity War, Civil War, the first Iron Man, and I'd have to say probably this. You know, I love it. I
All
love it.
right. And for me, this is my number 3 or 2, man. I have to rewatch
Yeah.
Civil War. I might put this over Civil War. I'm not sure. It goes Infinity War, Civil War, then Winter Soldier. This is definitely top 3 for me.
Oh boy.
Patrick, how will Captain America, the Winter Soldier, affect the Endgame?
Well, we know for starters, we know that the Russo brothers are directing Endgame, who also directed Winter Soldier,
Mm-hmm.
and so obviously the film in tone, two films will feel very similar. But again, it's impossible to look into the future of the MCU, especially after the events of Infinity War. Winter Soldier ends with the destruction of Shield, basically, because when those three helicarriers fall into the ocean, it symbolizes that Shield wanted to protect the world, but in the end, they destroyed themselves. So I feel like without Shield, I feel like the Avengers will pretty much be on their own. It solidifies the theme that the Avengers will be on their own because in the first Avengers movie, the Avengers had the support of Shield because Nick Fury was the one who brought the heroes together. So, and in Age of Ultron, Shield was the one that like brought the helicarrier up and like rescued the people of Sokovia. So I think in Avengers Endgame, with the destruction of Shield, it'll symbolize that the Avengers really will be on their own, especially with the, you know, disintegration of a certain character. There really is no plan B. There's like no chance of support. It's all or nothing. That's what I'm thinking.
It's the end game for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good theory, man. Very good theory. So for me, how Winter Soldier will affect the end game, you have to look at Cap. Because Cap is one of the Avengers left standing. He didn't turn to dust. It's all the Avengers left standing from the 2012 film. And we saw in Infinity War, Bucky was the first to turn to dust. He has to learn how to be that super soldier he was in the first film. He has to be the leader. He has to be the one to figure out a way to bring everybody back. And he has to get people who haven't turned to dust back to help. And he has to get Captain Marvel to help to save the day. He has to find whoever didn't turn to dust to save the day. With Bucky, I think Bucky is definitely going to come back. And what I think is going to happen is I don't think Cap is going to die at the end of Endgame. What I think is going to happen is he's going to retire and give the shield to Bucky, and he'll be the new Captain America. So it definitely is interesting to see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
In terms of Nick Fury and all that, but how this film is going to affect the end game, it's big. Many different possibilities, but that's what I think.
The questions are still up in the air, like where's the MCU going to go from here? Because yes, we have seen like some trailers and commercials, but again, they don't really like they hardly reveal anything about the movie. We're just kept questioning what's going to happen. So again, it's like fun to think of theories like this, like how will Captain America's arc end? Will his arc end?
Yeah. Probably all our theories are bullshit. But anyway, like I say in every episode. But anyway, guys, that's the answers to our questions for Captain America the Winter Soldier. And I want to give a special thank you to Patrick Preston. Thank you for coming on the Endgame series last minute, man. It's so well appreciated. Those were awesome responses to those questions. But we want to hear from you guys. Do you have completely different answers? Do you have a completely different theory that we couldn't even think of? We love to see those comments. So comment down below what you think, how this film will affect the endgame. We want to know. And Patrick, before we end off this show, man, I know you don't really post YouTube content, but tell my subscribers where they can follow you on social media.
Again, I do have a YouTube account. But like the content is pretty scarce. But I do have a Facebook, a Twitter, Instagram, and I have a Letterboxd. That's basically a website from which I can post all my reviews, all my ratings for movies, including all of the MCU movies, minus Captain Marvel, which I haven't seen yet. I will provide all of those in the comments section, all the links to those. Feel free to follow me, like me, whatever it's gonna take. But absolutely, thank you so much for having me on this show. It was so much fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Patrick, my cousin. And guys, yes, all of Patrick's social medias, if you want to go follow him, they will be in the comments or in the link. So definitely go give Patrick a follow. He's a really awesome dude. He's my cousin. He's so well appreciated, guys. Please go check him out. He's an awesome dude who loves movies. But thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the Endgame series. If you guys liked it, give it a thumbs up. And be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content. And be sure to stay tuned for episode 10 of the Endgame series, because that's another one of my favorite in the MCU, Guardians of the Galaxy. And joining me for that is my good buddy Durbin from Durbania. Look forward to that episode. It's going to be a blast. Ooga chugga. And all my social media links are in the description down below. Click that notification bell on your way out. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!